Michael Sullivan always believed in the strength of family. At 40, he had worked hard to build a stable, happy life for his wife Laura and their 10-year-old daughter, Olivia. Living in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Toronto, his days were filled with long hours as a financial analyst, trying to provide a future that his family could rely on. But over the past year, Michael felt the foundation of his once solid marriage beginning to crack. He couldn't quite pinpoint when it started, but the warmth between him and Laura had diminished. He tried to chalk it up to the natural wear and tear of life, hoping that things would settle over time. He didn't realize that the truth was waiting for him, just steps away, in his own garage. It was a cool autumn evening, the type where the air was crisp, and the sky glowed with the deep reds and oranges of falling leaves. Michael drove home, his usual exhaustion weighing on his shoulders after another long day at the office. His mind wandered to dinner, wondering what Laura might have made, but his thoughts were clouded by the distance he'd been feeling from her lately. Their conversations had become sparse and superficial, filled with awkward silences where there once had been laughter. As Michael pulled into the driveway of their modest but well-kept house, something strange caught his eye. There, in his garage, parked beside his own car, was a sleek, unfamiliar vehicle. The car was expensive-looking, jet black with shiny chrome accents, and entirely out of place in their humble suburban life. Frowning, Michael stepped out of his car and approached the vehicle. He ran his fingers along the polished surface, a feeling of unease settling in his stomach. Through the window, he could see a jacket casually draped over the back seat, with a logo embroidered on the sleeve. Clark Auto Dealership. His heart skipped a beat. "Who would be parking in my garage?" he muttered under his breath, glancing around as if expecting an explanation to materialize. Michael walked into the house, finding Laura in the kitchen, chopping vegetables. Her smile was strained, not quite reaching her eyes. "Hey," she greeted him casually, glancing briefly at him before turning back to her task. "Whose car is in the garage?" Michael asked, his voice carefully neutral. Laura didn't look up from the cutting board. "Oh, that. It's just a friend's. She needed somewhere to park for a while." "A friend," Michael echoed, his suspicion growing. "Yeah, you remember Susan from the gym," Laura offered, finally looking up. She had some errands to run in the area, and she didn't want to leave her car on the street. Michael stared at her, feeling the lie as if it were a physical object between them. He wanted to push, to question her further, but something in her eyes told him not to. He nodded slowly, forcing a smile. "Right. Susan. Sure." For the next few days, Michael couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Laura had become even more distant, distracted during their conversations, spending long hours on her phone, her screen always turned away from him. There were too many small inconsistencies piling up, unanswered calls, late nights out with friends, and the fact that she seemed to avoid any real conversation with him. But it was the car that haunted him the most. Michael had always trusted Laura completely. Their marriage wasn't perfect, but it was strong. Or at least he had thought it was. Now he wasn't so sure. By the time the weekend arrived, Michael couldn't stand it any longer. He had to know the truth. On Saturday morning, he told Laura he was heading into the office to catch up on some work. Instead, he parked his car 2 blocks away and quietly walked back to his house, his heart pounding in his chest. As he approached, he saw the black car in the garage again. He crept to the side of the house, peering through the window. Inside, Laura was laughing with a man he had never seen before, tall, with sharp features, and an air of confidence that made Michael's stomach twist with jealousy. The man's hand rested casually on Laura's shoulder, and she didn't move away. In fact, she leaned into his touch, her smile one that Michael hadn't seen in years. "Ryan," Laura said softly, her voice carrying through the slightly ajar window. Michael felt his heart shatter at the sound of that name. He had never heard it before, but the way Laura said it was filled with intimacy, with affection that was no longer his. He clenched his fists, barely restraining himself from storming into the house and confronting them right then and there. but something held him back. He needed more. He needed to be sure. Ryan's voice was low, and Michael had to strain to hear him. "You really think he doesn't know, Laura?" Laura sighed, her expression turning serious. "I don't know. Maybe he suspects something, but I'm careful. Besides, he's always so busy with work. I barely see him." Michael's blood boiled. His work. He was working to provide for their family, for her. And this was what she had been doing behind his back. "I can't keep doing this forever," Ryan said, his tone insistent. "We need to talk about what's next." Laura looked away, biting her lip. "I just need more time, Olivia." She wouldn't understand. Michael stepped back, his breath coming in short gasps. Olivia, his little girl. She was innocent in all of this, oblivious to the betrayal unfolding under her own roof. The thought of his daughter kept him grounded, preventing him from rushing inside and tearing everything apart. He couldn't lose control. Not yet. That evening, after Ryan had left, and Michael had returned to the house, as though nothing had happened, the atmosphere was tense. Laura acted as if everything were normal, but Michael could barely look at her. He felt like a stranger in his own home, surrounded by secrets and lies. After dinner, while Olivia was playing in her room, Michael finally broke the silence. "We need to talk, Laura." She paused, her back to him, as she washed dishes at the sink. "About what? Whose car was really in the garage today?" Michael asked, his voice hard, devoid of the warmth it usually carried. Laura froze for a moment, then slowly turned around, drying her hands on a towel. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with guilt. "Michael, Don't lie to me, Laura," he said, his voice breaking with anger and betrayal. "Whose car is it?" She looked down at the floor, unable to meet his gaze. "It's Ryan's." The words hit Michael like a punch to the gut. He stood there, staring at her, waiting for her to say more, but she stayed silent. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and controlled. "How long?" Laura wiped away a tear that had started to form in the corner of her eye. 6 months. Michael felt his legs go weak, and he sat down heavily on the couch. 6 months. 6 months of lies, of sneaking around, of betrayal. He couldn't believe it. He had been so blind. "I didn't mean for it to happen," Laura said, her voice trembling. "I never wanted to hurt you." "But you did," Michael said, his voice cracking. "You did." The days that followed were a blur of anger, hurt, and confusion. Michael slept on the couch, avoiding Laura as much as possible. He couldn't bear to look at her without feeling the sting of betrayal all over again. Meanwhile, Olivia continued to live her life, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing between her parents. One evening, as Michael sat on the couch, staring blankly at the TV, Olivia came into the living room, holding a drawing she had made. It was a picture of their family. Him, Laura, and Olivia, all smiling and holding hands. "Look, Daddy," she said excitedly. "I drew us at the park. When are we going again?" Michael looked at his daughter's face, her innocent eyes shining with happiness. He felt a lump form in his throat. He had been so consumed by his own pain that he had forgotten about her. She deserved better than this. She deserved a family that wasn't torn apart by secrets and lies. He hugged her tightly, his eyes filling with tears. "Soon, sweetheart. We'll go soon." That night, as Michael lay on the couch, he thought about his family, about what they had been and what they had become. He knew he had a choice to make. He could walk away, leave everything behind, and start over. Or he could fight for his family, for Olivia's sake, if not his own. The next morning, Michael called Ryan and arranged to meet him at a coffee shop downtown. He wasn't sure what he was going to say, but he knew he needed closure. The coffee shop was quiet when Michael arrived, the hum of the espresso machine filling the air. Ryan was already there, sitting at a table near the window, looking out at the busy streets of Toronto. He glanced up as Michael approached, his expression unreadable. "Michael," Ryan said, standing up to shake his hand. "I didn't expect this." Michael ignored the outstretched hand and sat down across from him, his gaze steady. I'm not here for pleasantries. This ends now. Ryan leaned back in his chair, sighing. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I'm sorry things turned out this way. You didn't hurt just me, Michael said, his voice firm. You hurt my family, and I won't let you keep doing that. Ryan nodded slowly, understanding the finality in Michael's tone. What are you going to do? That's between Laura and me, Michael said. But you're done. Stay away from her. Stay away from us. Ryan hesitated for a moment, then nodded again. All right, I'll stay away. Michael stood up, his decision made. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew that Ryan would no longer be a part of it.
Back at home, Laura sat on the front porch, waiting for Michael. When he arrived, she looked up at him, her face filled with uncertainty and fear. "Michael, I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I don't know if you can ever forgive me, but I want to try." Michael looked at her, his heart heavy with the weight of their past, of everything that had happened. He didn't know if he could ever forgive her completely. But as he heard Olivia's laughter from inside the house, he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't walk away. "We'll take it one day at a time," Michael said quietly, sitting down beside her. "For Olivia." Laura nodded, tears streaming down her face. "For Olivia." The sun began to set over the city, casting a warm glow over the house. Inside, their garage was empty, a symbol of the secrets that had once filled it. Now, it was time for new beginnings.